I never saw it coming. Jason had always been my rock, the person I trusted more than anyone. He was my best friend, my confidant. We'd been through everything together. Every high, every low, I thought he was the one who'd never leave me. The one person I could count on. But that was before everything came crashing down. I'd been at work all day, distracted, but as the hours dragged on, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that something wasn't right. Jason and I had planned to spend the evening together. We were supposed to catch up, eat pizza, and just be. So, when I texted him to say I'd be home early, I expected the usual reply, a great, I'll be waiting or see you soon, babe. Instead, there was silence. I didn't think much of it at first. Maybe he'd gotten caught up in something. But when I unlocked the door to our apartment, I heard sounds that made my blood run cold, whispers, and the unmistakable sound of a bed creaking. I froze. My mind raced, but my feet moved faster, and before I knew it, I was standing in the doorway of the bedroom. The sight hit me like a freight train. Jason, my Jason, was tangled in the sheets with Sophie. My Sophie. It was like time stopped. The room spun around me. I couldn't breathe. I felt my chest tighten as I watched them. She was laughing, her head thrown back, and Jason's hands, his hands that had touched me, that had held me so many nights, were all over her. Sophie, what the hell? I managed to croak, my voice barely more than a whisper. Jason's eyes shot open, and when he saw me, his face twisted in surprise and then panic. Wait, no, this isn't. But I couldn't hear him anymore. The weight of it, the sheer betrayal of it, crushed me. Sophie, my friend, the person I trusted enough to share my secrets with, was in my bed, in my place. And Jason. Jason was the one who'd promised to love me, to never hurt me. My stomach lurched. I turned on my heel before they could say anything more. My mind screamed for me to leave, but my body was already doing it. I didn't stop to pack my things. I didn't stop to say goodbye. I didn't even look back. Jason's voice was frantic behind me, wait. Just let me explain. But I didn't hear him. I couldn't hear him. The sound of his voice was the final straw. It was over. The door slammed behind me as I stepped into the cold night air. I was shaking, my body trembling from the shock, but I didn't care. I couldn't care. My heart felt like it was breaking in two, but I swallowed it down. I'd deal with the pain later. I walked away, my mind reeling, but a part of me, a quiet part of me, felt a sense of release. This was the end. No more him. No more lies. No more pretending like everything was fine. That was the moment everything changed. I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't the same girl who believed in him, who trusted him with everything. I wasn't the girl who could be deceived so easily. I wasn't weak. And I wouldn't let him control me again. Not after this. Not ever again. I thought walking away from Jason would be the hardest thing I'd ever do. I was wrong. The hardest part was living with the aftermath. The days stretched into weeks, each one heavier than the last. I woke up each morning feeling like I was suffocating, like I couldn't breathe without his presence. The sting of the betrayal was still fresh, gnawing at me, and every memory of him hurt more than the last. I tried to keep busy, throwing myself into work. It was the only thing that kept me from spiraling. At least when I was at work, I could focus on something else. I could pretend, even for a moment, that I wasn't living in a nightmare. But the moment I came home, the silence in the apartment was suffocating. The silence that used to feel comfortable now felt like a constant reminder of everything I had lost. I'd never realized how much of my life had revolved around him, how everything, from the smallest moments to the biggest decisions, had been shared between us. Now, I was alone. And being alone felt like a wound that never stopped bleeding. One evening, I was sitting at the kitchen table, half drunk on the bottle of wine I had opened 2 hours ago, when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Ben. "Hey, you doing okay? Wanna grab coffee tomorrow?" Ben. I hadn't heard from him in weeks. He was Jason's best friend, but he'd always been there for me too, in his own way. The funny thing about Ben was that he was always in the background, never too loud, never too pushy, but always present. He was a steady force, someone I could rely on even when things weren't perfect. I wasn't sure if I was ready to talk to him yet, but I had nothing else. "Sure. 10 a.m. at the usual place?" I texted back. The next morning, I met Ben at our favorite cafe. He was already sitting at a corner table, a mug of coffee in front of him, his glasses pushed up slightly on his nose as he read a book. His presence was comforting in a way I hadn't expected. I hadn't realized how much I missed the simplicity of our friendship until I saw him. "Hey," I said quietly, sitting down across from him. "Hey," he replied, looking up from his book. He smiled, but his eyes were filled with concern. "How are you holding up?" I swallowed hard, trying not to crumble. "I'm managing." He nodded, not pressing any further. Instead, he just sat there, quietly watching me, as if waiting for me to say more if I wanted to. I could feel the weight of everything, the betrayal, the anger, the heartbreak, rising up in me, but I swallowed it down. "I didn't expect you to reach out," I finally said. "You're Jason's best friend. I thought you might side with him." Ben leaned back in his chair, a small frown tugging at his lips. "I'm friends with both of you, and I'm not going to pretend that I don't care about you just because of what happened with him. I just want to make sure you're okay." I blinked, taken aback by his words. There was something about the way he said it, so genuine, so steady, that made me want to break down in front of him. But I couldn't. Not yet. "I'm not okay," I admitted softly. "I thought I had everything. My whole life was built around him, and now I have nothing. I don't know how to deal with this." Ben's eyes softened, and he reached across the table, placing a hand over mine. "You don't have to figure it all out today. One step at a time, okay?" His hand was warm, comforting, and I realized then how much I had missed having someone who actually cared. Jason had always been there, yes, but it had been for his own reasons. Ben was different. He was here because he wanted to be. Not because he was forced into it by the circumstances of our shared history with Jason. You're not alone in this, Ben continued, his voice steady. I'm here. You're not the only one who's hurt, you know? I looked at him, and for the first time in a while, I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe it wasn't all over. Maybe there was a way to move on, even if it was a long road. Ben was here, offering something Jason never had, genuine care. I looked down at our hands on the table, his palm still warm against mine, and I realized something. Maybe I didn't have to walk this path alone. Maybe it wasn't too late to find something real. Thanks, I whispered. I didn't think I needed anyone, but I think I do. Ben's smile was small but sincere. I'm glad you reached out. You don't have to do this by yourself. I nodded, the knot in my chest loosening just a little. For the first time since everything had fallen apart, I allowed myself to believe in something other than the hurt. Maybe Ben and I could find a way forward. Maybe he could help me heal. But for now, I just wanted to sit here, in this moment, with someone who wasn't a reminder of the past but a possibility for the future. I thought I was starting to move on. I really did. The days were slowly becoming less painful. I found myself laughing again, even if it was just at Ben's jokes or something silly on TV. I began to breathe more freely, like I wasn't constantly walking through a fog. I could feel the tension leaving my body. Maybe things were looking up. Then, just as I was getting used to this new life, Jason showed up. I was at work when my phone buzzed. I glanced down at the screen, half expecting another spam message, but when I saw the name, Jason, I froze. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt an unexpected rush of anger. I'd been doing fine, hadn't I? I'd been rebuilding, learning to live without him. And now he was here, popping up like a ghost from the past. I ignored the message. But he didn't give up. Another text came through a few minutes later. Then another. Then a missed call. Hey, can we talk? I know what I did was wrong. I need to explain. Please. I'm sorry. Please just let me explain. I sat there staring at my phone, my hands shaking. I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want to fall back into his web. I was done. But there was something about the urgency in his words, something that made me wonder why he was suddenly so desperate. It wasn't like him to beg. He was the kind of guy who always had control, who always knew what to say and how to say it. The fact that he was now pleading made me curious. Maybe it was just guilt, but maybe it was something else. I waited a few hours before I finally called him back. I couldn't avoid him forever. Hello? His voice was low, hesitant. Jason, I said, my tone colder than I expected. What do you want? I don't know how to say this, but I need to see you. In person, he replied quickly, his words rushed, as if he were worried I'd hang up. I hesitated, my heart pounding in my chest. I'd left him behind, or so I thought. I didn't need him to come back into my life, especially not after everything that happened. But something in me couldn't shake the feeling that maybe, just maybe, there was more to his apology than I could see. Why? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Why now? After everything you did? There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Because I messed up. I hurt you. And I need you to know it wasn't supposed to happen. I didn't mean to hurt you, ever. Please, just let me explain face to face. I owe you that much. His words made something inside me crack, but I quickly shoved it down. I don't think I can trust you anymore, Jason. You've already done enough damage. I know, he said, his voice soft, almost pleading now. I know I don't deserve another chance. But I swear, I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm just asking for one more chance to tell you the truth. Please. It was hard to ignore the way his words hit me, hard and sharp, like a knife twisting in my chest. But I couldn't let myself fall for it again. I was stronger now, wasn't I? I'll meet you tomorrow, I said, finally giving in, but only because I needed closure. I needed to hear him out, to know why he had done this. I regretted it the second I ended the call. The rest of the day was a blur. I went through the motions of work, but my mind was elsewhere. Why was he doing this now? What was he hoping to gain? I couldn't understand it. The betrayal still burned in my veins, and no apology would ever erase the image of him with Sophie. But part of me, just a small part, was curious. I wanted answers. That night, Ben noticed the change in my mood immediately. We'd been texting all day, and when I finally arrived at his apartment, I could see the concern in his eyes as he opened the door. Hey, what's wrong? He asked gently, guiding me to the couch. I sat down with a sigh, running a hand through my hair. Jason called. He wants to meet up tomorrow. Ben didn't say anything at first. He just sat next to me, his silence giving me space to speak. I don't know what to do, Ben, I admitted, my voice shaky. Part of me says I should just ignore him, but I don't know. I need to know why. I need him to explain what happened. Ben's hand found mine, giving it a reassuring squeeze. You don't owe him anything, you know that, right? He hurt you. But if you think you need answers, then do it for you, not for him. I nodded, my heart heavy with conflicting emotions. I don't know if I'm ready for this. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for this. Ben pulled me into a gentle hug, holding me close. I'll be here, no matter what. I know it's hard, but you don't have to face him alone. Just remember that. I closed my eyes, letting myself find a small amount of comfort in Ben's words. He was right. I didn't have to do this by myself. But no matter how much support I had, I still couldn't shake the feeling that this meeting with Jason would change everything once again. The day finally came. I stood in front of the mirror, staring at my reflection. I barely recognized myself. My eyes were tired, my face pale, the weight of everything sinking deeper into my bones. I couldn't help but wonder if I was doing the right thing. Was I ready to see him again? Was I ready to hear his excuses? I had no answers, but I knew I had to go. For myself. I needed closure, no matter how much it hurt. When I arrived at the cafe where we agreed to meet, my heart was pounding so hard in my chest that it felt like I might explode. I didn't know what I was expecting, maybe him, still confident and in control, maybe an apology so convincing that I'd fall back into his arms. But the moment I saw him sitting at a table in the corner, I knew it was different. Jason didn't look like the man I remembered. He looked broken. His usual confident smirk was gone, replaced by a frown, and the way he sat, his shoulders hunched, his hands fidgeting in his lap, made him seem smaller, weaker. I took a deep breath and walked over to the table, my steps slow, deliberate. He looked up when I approached, and for the first time in a long time, I saw vulnerability in his eyes. Hey, he said quietly, his voice rough, like he hadn't spoken much lately. Hey, I replied, my voice flat. I slid into the chair across from him, folding my arms tightly across my chest. There was an uncomfortable silence between us. Jason didn't seem to know where to start, and honestly, neither did I. I wasn't sure what I was supposed to feel right now. Anger? Relief? Confusion? All of it, probably. Finally, he spoke again, his words slow, careful. I know I don't deserve this chance, but I need to tell you something. I need you to understand why I did what I did. I couldn't look at him. I stared at my hands, willing myself to stay calm, to not let the anger rise again. I don't think you can explain it. What you did, it hurt too much, Jason. I know. He paused, and I could hear the regret in his voice. I know. And I'm sorry. I don't have an excuse. I can't justify it. But I wasn't thinking. I thought I could have it all. I thought I could keep things with you and have whatever I wanted on the side. It was selfish and cruel, and I'll never forgive myself for it. His words hit me like a punch to the stomach. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. I didn't know if he was telling the truth, if his remorse was real, or if he was just saying what I needed to hear to make this go away. You didn't just betray me, I said, finally looking up at him. You betrayed us. Everything we were. Our friendship, our trust, it was all a lie. I know. His voice cracked, and I saw the pain in his eyes. I don't expect you to forgive me. I don't even deserve it. But I need you to know that I never meant to hurt you. I thought if I had everything, I'd be happy. But I was wrong. I've never felt more empty than I do right now. My heart clenched, but I shook my head. Empty doesn't cut it, Jason. You tore me apart. You left me feeling like I wasn't enough. And Sophie, she was supposed to be my friend. You both made a mockery of everything I believed in. I'm sorry, he whispered, his face pained. I really am. I stared at him, trying to hold back the tears that threatened to spill. I had to stay strong. I had to make the right choice. I took a deep breath and leaned back in my chair. I need to let you go, Jason. I can't keep holding on to this, to you. What you did, it broke me. And I'm not sure I'll ever be able to forgive you for it. But I'm not going to keep dragging this on either. I need to move on. Jason's face paled, and I could see the realization hit him hard. He looked like he wanted to say something, anything, but the words wouldn't come. His eyes filled with unshed tears, and for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But the pain was still too fresh. I'll always care about you, I continued, my voice steady. But that's not enough. I don't know if I can ever love you the way I did before. I understand, he said quietly, his shoulders slumping. I'm sorry. I'll always regret what I did. I just wanted you to know that. I nodded, standing up from the table. My chest felt tight, but there was something freeing about this decision. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary. I'm done, Jason, I said, my voice final. Goodbye. And just like that, I walked away. I didn't look back. I thought walking away from Jason would be the hardest thing I ever had to do. But honestly, it wasn't. The hardest part was learning to live again, to piece myself back together after everything shattered. Jason's betrayal had left scars, deep ones, but in a strange way, that was the beginning of something new. It wasn't immediate. At first, I just wanted to be alone. The apartment felt different without him, without his voice, without the constant reminders of the life we used to have. The silence was deafening, but it was also mine. My space. My time to heal. I started throwing myself into work again, keeping busy, trying not to think about the empty nights. But then, there was Ben. Ben was always there. Even after everything with Jason went down, Ben never left my side. His messages, his calls, they didn't stop. He was patient, never pushing, just offering quiet support. And little by little, I found myself relying on him more and more. He'd text me at random hours, asking how I was doing, if I needed anything. Sometimes, he just sent a silly meme, just to make me laugh. At first, I thought I was just using him as a distraction. But as the days passed, I started to see it differently. Ben was more than just a friend. He was my lifeline, my anchor in a storm I didn't think I'd survive. It was on one of those evenings, sitting in his apartment with a pizza box between us, that I realized how much I'd been missing. I hadn't noticed it before, but Ben's presence was like breathing fresh air after suffocating in smoke for so long. He was easy to be with. No pressure. No expectations. Just comfort. "Are you doing okay?" Ben asked, breaking the silence as he took a bite of his pizza. His eyes were warm, patient, always watching me like he was waiting for me to talk. I looked up from my plate, my thoughts swirling. "I don't know, Ben. I don't think I'll ever be okay again, not after what happened." He nodded slowly, not trying to offer false comfort. "You don't have to be okay. I just want you to know you're not alone in this." Something inside me cracked then. I'd been so afraid of being alone, of feeling like no one cared. But here was Ben, sitting with me, just being with me, without asking for anything in return. "I don't know what I'd do without you," I admitted, the words slipping out before I could stop them. My voice trembled slightly, but it felt right. "You've been there for me when I didn't even know if I could get out of bed some days." Ben's expression softened, and he reached over to squeeze my hand. "That's what friends do. I'm not going anywhere, okay?" I nodded, swallowing the lump in my throat. I didn't need to explain more. He understood. Ben was quiet that way, always understanding without pushing, always there without demanding. It was like a weight lifting off my shoulders, just knowing he would always be here. We spent the rest of the evening talking about anything and everything. We laughed more than we had in weeks. And when the night ended, he walked me to the door, the usual hug turning into something more, something unexpected. "Good night," Ben said softly, his hands lingering at my shoulders. "Good night," I replied, my heart racing in a way I hadn't expected. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't a promise of anything more. But there was a shift between us, something I couldn't ignore. I didn't know what this feeling was, but I didn't want to push it away either. For the first time since Jason, I didn't feel like I was drowning. I felt seen. And that was enough. The next morning, I woke up with a strange sense of peace. I realized I'd been holding my breath for far too long, waiting for something to change, for some sign that everything would be okay again. And maybe this was it. Maybe this was my sign. As the days passed, I found myself slowly letting go of the past. The pain was still there, but it was quieter now. Ben's presence in my life wasn't a distraction, it was healing. He didn't try to replace Jason. He didn't need to. He was just there, in a way that Jason never was, offering something real. I began to see my life in a new light. I didn't need to hold on to what had been. I didn't need to keep fighting the past. I had a new future now, one that didn't involve betrayal or heartbreak. One that involved taking small steps toward a new beginning, with someone who actually cared about me. I didn't know where this was going with Ben. I wasn't ready to put a label on it, but for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel the need to rush. We were taking it slow, and that felt like the right pace for me. "I'm glad you're here," I whispered to him one night, as we sat on the couch, watching an old movie. He looked over at me, his eyes soft, his smile so genuine. "I'm always here," he said, his voice steady. And somehow, in that moment, I knew he meant it. Jason had been gone from my life for weeks, but it still felt like he was haunting me. The emotional scars he'd left behind weren't easily erased, no matter how much time passed. And yet, as I went about my days, moving on, I couldn't shake the nagging feeling that the consequences of his actions were still unfolding, both for him and for me. It wasn't until I ran into him that I realized just how much had changed. I was walking out of a coffee shop one afternoon when I saw him. Jason. Standing across the street, leaning against a building, looking every bit the man I'd once thought I knew. The sight of him sent a wave of anger rushing through me, and for a moment, I wanted to turn around and walk away. But something about his posture, his defeated stance, made me hesitate. He was wearing a jacket I didn't recognize, his hair unkempt, his face drawn and tired. It didn't look like the Jason I used to know, the one who always seemed so sure of himself. I stood there, frozen, watching him for a few seconds, unsure if I should go up to him. But then, without thinking, I crossed the street. "Jason," I said, my voice colder than I intended. He looked up, and the moment our eyes met, I could see the guilt in his. He straightened up quickly, as if trying to compose himself. His lips parted, but no words came out at first. "Why are you here?" I asked, narrowing my eyes, arms crossed in front of me. He cleared his throat, his voice hoarse. "I wanted to see you. I thought, maybe we could talk. You know, about everything." I swallowed the bitterness that rose in my throat. "About everything? You mean about how you betrayed me? About how you tore everything apart and didn't even care?" He flinched at my words, but I didn't care. "Not anymore. I've been trying to fix things," he said quietly, his gaze dropping to the ground. "I know I can't undo what I did, but I've lost everything, and it's all my fault. Sophie left me. Everyone left me. I'm..." "Good," I interrupted, my heart pounding. "You deserve it. Everything falling apart, it's what you get. You don't get to come back, Jason. Not now. Not after what you did." His head jerked up, his eyes pleading. "I know. I get it, okay? I get that you hate me. I deserve your hate. But please, just hear me out. I don't know where to go from here. Everything I've done has turned to dust. I'm broken, and I don't know how to fix it." I stared at him, my emotions a chaotic mess. Part of me wanted to say something kind, wanted to be the person I used to be. But another part of me, the stronger part, wanted to walk away. It was clear to me that he was still trying to manipulate me, just in a different way. His desperation was evident. "Jason, I don't care about your mistakes anymore," I said flatly, the words cutting through the air between us. "I'm done with you. I've been done. The price of what you did is more than just losing me. It's losing everything you thought you could keep." I watched as his expression changed, a flicker of regret flashing in his eyes. But it wasn't enough. Not after everything. His pleading was too little, too late. I wasn't going to be the one to pick up the pieces of his broken life. "Goodbye, Jason," I said, turning to walk away. "Wait," he called after me, but I didn't stop. I didn't even look back. I didn't need to. The days that followed weren't as easy as I thought they would be. It wasn't just Jason's face that haunted me, it was the memory of everything we had once shared, everything he'd taken from me. But despite the lingering ache, there was something else there too, a sense of satisfaction. Jason's downfall wasn't sweet revenge. It wasn't the victory I had expected. But it was justice. He was finally paying the price for his actions, and I didn't have to lift a finger. I learned that day that moving on wasn't about forgetting what had happened. It wasn't about erasing the past. It was about accepting that some people aren't meant to stay in your life. It was about standing tall in the face of betrayal and knowing that the world keeps spinning, whether you want it to or not. It was hard, and it hurt. But every time I looked at Ben, I realized how much better my life could be when I didn't let Jason's mess define me anymore. Ben had been my constant, my rock, and in the quiet moments with him, I knew that there was something worth holding on to. Jason's life was falling apart, and I could have spent my time thinking about him, letting his downfall consume me. But I didn't. I wasn't going to waste another second on him. The days following my encounter with Jason were strangely quiet. For the first time in what felt like forever, I could finally hear myself think without the constant hum of confusion and pain in the background. His face still haunted me at night, but during the day, I pushed forward. I had made my decision, I was done with him. And with each passing day, the reality of that decision sank deeper into my bones. But just when I thought I could breathe again, just when I thought I was free, the chaos returned. It started with a text. Just a simple one. At first, I didn't recognize the number, but when I saw the name attached to it, my blood ran cold. Jason. It wasn't just any text. It was a warning. Stop telling people lies about me. If you don't, you'll regret it. I stared at my phone in disbelief. Lies? What the hell was he talking about? I hadn't told anyone anything. I hadn't said a word about the details of our breakup. So why was he threatening me now? I quickly typed back, my fingers trembling as I wrote the response. I haven't told anyone anything. I don't know what you're talking about. But his reply came almost instantly. You're lying. You told Ben, didn't you? I know he's been in your life. You've been using him to get back at me. That's what you've always wanted, isn't it? My stomach twisted into knots. I couldn't believe this. I hadn't said a word to anyone about Jason or the breakup, except to Ben, of course. But Ben had been nothing but supportive. He wasn't trying to get back at Jason. I didn't know how he knew about Ben, but suddenly, it clicked. Jason was spiraling. He was unraveling faster than I realized. And now, he was trying to drag me into his mess. I tried to keep calm. I could already feel my pulse quickening, but I typed my response, steadying my hands before I hit send. This isn't about Ben. Stop involving him in your mess. This is on you, Jason. I didn't wait for him to reply. The texts had already made it clear that Jason wasn't the man I once knew. He was angry, bitter, and desperate, and I was his target now. Later that evening, as I sat on the couch with Ben, my phone buzzed again. I tried to ignore it, but my hands reached for the device automatically. My heart sank when I saw the number. Jason. I couldn't keep this from Ben anymore. It wasn't fair to him. The last thing I wanted was to pull him into Jason's chaos, but this was bigger than just the two of us now. Ben, I need to talk to you about something, I said, my voice heavy with the weight of what was happening. I could feel his eyes on me, the usual warmth replaced by concern. What's going on? Ben asked, sitting up straighter. I handed him my phone without saying another word. He read the text, his brow furrowing deeper with each line. When he finished, he sighed, setting the phone down beside him. Is he threatening you? Ben's voice was low, his eyes sharp. I nodded, biting my lip. Yeah, he's blaming me for everything that's happening to him. He's saying I'm lying about what happened between us. He thinks I've been using you to get back at him. Ben didn't speak for a moment, processing the information. His hands clenched into fists, and I could see the anger boiling behind his calm demeanor. I'd never seen him like this. He wasn't one for confrontation, but this was different. Jason's actions were affecting me, and Ben wouldn't stand for that. I won't let him drag you back into his mess, Ben said, his voice firm. He's just trying to manipulate you, and I won't let him do that. You don't owe him anything, not anymore. I know, I said quietly. But I can't help but feel like he's going to do something crazy. He's spiraling, Ben. And I don't know what he's capable of anymore. Ben took my hand in his touch steadying me. Whatever happens, I'm here. He won't get to you. I won't let him. His words were like a lifeline. I felt the weight of everything, the threats, the anger, the fear, start to lift, if only a little. With Ben beside me, I wasn't as afraid of what Jason might do. The next few days passed in a blur of constant tension. Jason continued sending me texts, calling me late at night. I ignored every single one of them, not wanting to engage with him anymore. But no matter how many times I turned him down, he kept coming back. Ben noticed the change in me. I was more anxious, more on edge, trying to keep my distance from Jason while also keeping Ben in the loop. But there was something in the air now, a constant undercurrent of danger I couldn't shake. I could feel Jason pushing harder and harder, trying to force me into a corner where I had no choice but to engage with him. But then, on a night that started like any other, it finally happened. Jason showed up at my apartment. I didn't even hear him knock at first, but then I heard it, his voice, low and urgent, coming from outside the door. I know you're in there. I'm not going away until we talk. I froze. My heart dropped into my stomach. I looked at Ben, who was already on his feet, his jaw set in determination. He stepped toward the door, but I grabbed his arm, stopping him. No, I said, my voice firm. This ends now. I'm done with him. But I wasn't sure who I was trying to convince. Jason's presence was suffocating, and the storm between us felt inevitable. I didn't know how this was going to end, but I knew it couldn't go on like this forever. It was the third night in a row that Jason showed up at my door. This time, I didn't even flinch. I knew what was coming. I knew he was out of control, desperate for something he couldn't have anymore, me. But it didn't matter how many times he showed up or how many threats he made. The door would remain closed. I was done. Ben wasn't home, and I was alone in the apartment, the only sound the low hum of the refrigerator. But Jason's voice came through the door, louder than the silence. Let me in, damn it. I'm not leaving until you hear me out. I stood frozen, my heart pounding in my chest. For a second, I thought I might give in. Maybe I'd just open the door, let him talk. Maybe I could hear him out one last time, just to have the closure I thought I needed. But I knew that wasn't the answer. There would never be closure with Jason. Not after everything. I grabbed my phone and sent a text to Ben, Jason's here again. He's losing it. Please come back as soon as you can. But before I could hit send, the banging on the door grew louder, more frantic. I could hear his anger, his frustration, and something else, desperation. It sent a chill down my spine. Open the door, I said. We need to talk about this. Jason's voice cracked, full of raw emotion. I'm not leaving without an answer. You owe me that much. I took a deep breath, my hands shaking slightly as I typed my response to Ben. He's not leaving. I need you. I didn't know if Ben would get the message in time. I didn't know if Jason would push things further. But I couldn't keep living like this, caught in the middle of his chaos. I had to make a stand. I opened the door, and there he was, Jason, standing on the other side, eyes wild and unrecognizable. The confident man I once knew was gone. He looked disheveled, pale, as if the weight of his actions was finally breaking him down. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His breathing was ragged, his eyes full of something I couldn't place, anger, guilt, maybe even fear. He didn't move, just stood there, waiting for me to say something. I stood my ground. I told you, Jason. I'm done. He blinked, like the words didn't quite register. Done? Done with me? After everything we've been through? You made your choice, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You betrayed me. You broke my trust. You thought you could have everything and lose nothing. You were wrong. He shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. I didn't want to hurt you, you know. I never did. But I didn't know how to make things right. And now, it's too late, isn't it? I didn't answer. There was nothing more to say. Jason's words were just another attempt to manipulate me, to make me feel guilty for his mistakes. And I wasn't going to let him do that anymore. I've tried to make it right. I've tried to fix what I broke, Jason continued, his voice cracking. But I can't. I know I can't, and it's eating me alive. You think I wanted this? You think I wanted to ruin everything we had? I don't know who I am without you. The desperation in his voice struck something deep inside me. I felt the pain, the regret, the brokenness. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for me to turn back. You don't get to make me feel sorry for you, Jason, I said, my voice firm, almost cold. You lost everything. And you did it to yourself. This isn't on me anymore. It's on you. His face twisted in anguish. You think I don't know that? You think I don't know how much I've screwed up? I've lost Sophie. I've lost you. I've lost everything. I wanted to say something, to soften the blow, to tell him that everything would be okay. But I couldn't. Not after everything. Not after what he'd done. Jason, you had the chance to make it right, I said, my voice low but unwavering. But you chose not to. You chose your lies, your selfishness, and now you're just left with the consequences. You want to know how to fix things? Start by fixing yourself. Stop blaming me. His face crumpled, and for a moment, I saw the man I had once loved. But that man didn't exist anymore. The Jason I had known was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. I don't know how to fix this, he whispered, his voice barely audible. I nodded, my eyes softening for just a second. But only for a second. That's the hardest part, Jason. You have to face it. You have to live with it. There was silence for a long while. Jason just stood there, staring at me, his whole body sagging with the weight of his own mistakes. I felt a pang of sympathy, but it didn't last. Finally, I spoke again. You need to leave. For a moment, I thought he might fight me on it, but instead, he took a step back. His eyes were empty now, drained of any emotion other than regret. I don't know what to say. I never meant to hurt you. I never wanted this. I know, I said quietly. But this is where we end. He didn't say anything else. He turned and walked away without another word, disappearing down the hallway, leaving me standing in the doorway. I closed the door behind me and leaned against it, my heart pounding in my chest. It was done. But the weight of what I had just done, the choice I had just made, still hung in the air. It wasn't just the end of Jason. It was the end of everything I had believed about love, about trust. And even though I felt a strange sense of relief, I also felt a hollow ache in my chest. The choice was mine. But now I had to live with it. I had hoped that when I closed the door on Jason, it would be the end of it. I thought that would be the moment when I could breathe easy again, when the heavy weight of his betrayal would finally lift. But the truth was, walking away from him was just the beginning. For a while, things were quiet. I kept busy with work, focused on moving forward, and leaned on Ben whenever I needed someone to talk to. Slowly, I felt the cracks in my heart start to heal. But even though I wasn't looking over my shoulder anymore, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was still lingering, something unfinished. I had no idea how true that feeling would prove to be. It started with a phone call. I didn't recognize the number, but when I picked it up, I almost dropped the phone when I heard the voice on the other end. Hello? Jason's voice was hoarse, distant. I didn't respond right away, my pulse quickening. What could he possibly want now? Hadn't he learned his lesson? Hello, he repeated, a hint of desperation in his voice. It's me. Jason. Why are you calling me? I said, my voice steady, even though my chest was tight. What do you want? I need to tell you something. Something you need to hear. I closed my eyes, frustration and anger bubbling up. No. I'm done, Jason. I'm not your therapist, and I'm not your savior. Whatever you need to say, you can keep it. I can't keep running from this. I'm sorry. You need to know what happened after you left. You need to know what's been happening to me. I stayed silent for a moment, unsure if I even wanted to hear it. But something in his voice made me hesitate. I had to know. I couldn't pretend I wasn't curious, even if it was only for a moment. Fine, I said, the words almost bitter on my tongue. Talk. But I'm not forgiving you. Not now. Not ever. Jason took a deep breath, then spoke slowly, as though each word weighed heavily on him. After you left, Sophie left too. I thought she'd be my way out. But she wasn't. I thought we could just pretend everything was fine, that we could get past everything, but she couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. I kept pushing, and it pushed her away. Now she's gone. I'm alone. I didn't say anything. I wasn't going to give him the satisfaction of hearing how much I didn't care. I know I deserve this, Jason continued. But it doesn't make it hurt any less. I thought I could fix things, that I could find a way to make it right. But I can't. I lost everything, and now I don't know who I am anymore. I squeezed my eyes shut, biting down hard on the urge to snap at him. I could feel the anger rising, threatening to drown out any hint of empathy I might have had left. But deep down, I knew it wasn't anger I was feeling. It was something worse. It was satisfaction. Karma. I didn't say a word. I let the silence hang between us, long and thick. He kept talking, but I didn't hear his words. I was too busy remembering how it felt to have him lie to me, to watch as everything I believed in crumbled at his feet. And now, he was suffering. Not because he had changed, but because he hadn't. He was still the same selfish, broken person he always was. The only difference now was that there was no one left to fix him. You don't need to hear this, Jason's voice broke through my thoughts. You've been through enough. But I need you to know that I'm sorry. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I don't deserve it. I just need you to know that I'm sorry. The words were empty. I could hear the regret in his voice, but it didn't matter. The damage was done. The apology was meaningless. And I was finally free. I'm not the one you need to apologize to, Jason, I said, my voice calm and steady. You need to apologize to yourself. You need to figure out how to fix what's broken inside of you. But I'm done being your punching bag. I'm done being your excuse for your mistakes. The line went quiet for a long time, and I knew he was processing my words. There was no more to say, not from me. Goodbye, Jason, I whispered, finally ending the call. I sat there in silence for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling in. It wasn't relief I felt. It wasn't closure either. It was something else. Something I couldn't quite place. But then, as I looked down at my phone, the realization hit me. Jason's suffering, his downfall, was his own doing. And I had played no part in it. For the first time, I felt no guilt. I didn't need to take responsibility for his mistakes anymore. I had learned to stop carrying the weight of his actions. And that was when I truly understood what it meant to be free. A few days later, things continued to change. The longer Jason's world fell apart, the more I felt myself slipping further away from him. It wasn't just about what he had done, it was about the person I had become in the process of moving on. I had grown stronger. I had learned to stand on my own 2 feet, without the crutch of a toxic relationship holding me back. One evening, Ben and I sat together on the couch, the quiet comfort of his presence wrapping around me like a blanket. He looked over at me, his expression soft. You okay? I smiled. It wasn't the smile of someone who was pretending to be okay. It was the smile of someone who finally believed it. I'm more than okay, I said, leaning against him. I'm free. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. The days had become easier, quieter. Jason's presence was no longer looming over me, and the remnants of his betrayal were fading, bit by bit. For the first time in months, I felt like I was truly living. Not just surviving, not just going through the motions. But living. It wasn't perfect. I wasn't perfect. But each day felt like a new opportunity, a fresh start. I had stopped looking over my shoulder, stopped worrying about the things I couldn't control. I had let go of the past. And then there was Ben. Ben had been a constant, not in the dramatic, over-the-top way that I had once imagined a savior would be. No, he was quieter than that, steadier. He didn't have to rescue me. He just was there. And somehow, that was enough. We'd spent more time together, slowly building something new between us, something real. It wasn't about rushing or forcing anything. It was about 2 people who'd been hurt, who'd been broken, learning how to heal together. How to trust again. I was at his apartment that evening, sitting on the couch with my legs tucked beneath me, a book in hand. He was on the other side of the room, cooking dinner, humming quietly to himself. There was a peace to our routine now that felt effortless. I didn't have to wonder what would happen tomorrow. I knew. I had him in my life, and that was enough. So, Ben said, glancing over his shoulder, any plans for this weekend? I lowered the book, smiling. I don't know. Maybe we can go to that art exhibit you mentioned last week? Ben raised an eyebrow, his lips curling into a grin. You actually remembered? I chuckled. I'm not that forgetful. He turned back to the stove, his smile lingering. There was something so easy about him, about the way we fit together now. I wasn't anxious about the future anymore. There was no pressure. I was just happy. What about you? I asked, watching him stir the pot. Any secret plans up your sleeve? He paused, pretending to think. Well, there's this little cafe down the street I've been meaning to try. We could go there instead. I raised my eyebrows. Secretly a foodie, are we? Maybe, he said, his grin widening. You'll have to come and find out. I set the book down and walked over to him, wrapping my arms around his waist. He leaned down to kiss my forehead, and for a brief moment everything felt perfect. The weight of the past, the shadow of Jason, it was all fading into something unrecognizable. I like this, I murmured, pressing my cheek to his chest. I like us. Ben's arms tightened around me, and he kissed the top of my head. I like us, too. A lot. And in that moment, everything felt like it was exactly where it was supposed to be. The past was still there, a part of me I would never forget, but it no longer defined me. It didn't control me anymore. What mattered was the present, our present, and the future we were slowly building together. The next few weeks passed in a comfortable blur. Every day, I found myself falling more for Ben, not in the desperate, all-consuming way I had with Jason, but in a quiet, gentle way that made my heart feel lighter. We spent weekends exploring new places, trying new things, and talking for hours about everything and nothing. And through it all, Jason was nothing more than a distant memory. I'd learned to stop wondering what he was doing, stop caring about the consequences of his actions. The truth was, I didn't owe him anything. I didn't owe him my thoughts or my time or my energy. There was a time when I thought Jason would always be a part of my life, that I would never be able to fully move on. But now, standing here, I realized that was just a version of myself that was no longer real. I was free. One afternoon, Ben and I took a walk through the park. It was late autumn, and the trees had shed most of their leaves. The air was crisp, and the sun hung low in the sky, casting everything in golden light. Ben took my hand, and we walked in silence for a few moments, just enjoying the peace of it all. Finally, he spoke, breaking the quiet. You know, I'm really proud of you. I looked at him, surprised. For what? For being so strong, he said, squeezing my hand. For getting through everything with Jason and still coming out the other side. Not everyone can do that. I felt warmth spread through my chest at his words. I didn't do it alone. Ben smiled at me, his eyes soft. No. You didn't. There was a long pause as we kept walking, the weight of his words sinking in. I realized, in that moment, that Ben had been my anchor. But I had also been my own anchor. I had found strength in myself that I didn't even know existed. I'm happy, I said quietly, the realization settling over me like a blanket. For the first time in a long time, I'm really happy. Ben stopped walking and turned to face me, his eyes searching mine. Me too. And in that moment, I knew that whatever the future held, I was ready for it. With Ben by my side, I could face anything. The past didn't define me anymore. And for the first time, I truly believed that.